Hello everyone and welcome to the Aaron Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host Blake Aaron, joined alongside my brother and co-host Brett Aaron, and we've got an exciting show planned for you all today. We're going to be talking with the Hunting Public's Zach Ferenbaugh. It's going to be an exciting show, Brett. We've been wanting to talk to these guys for a long time and kind of pick their brains. So we're going to have a good show in store for you. We want to let you know that the show is brought to you by Gray's Lawn and Landscape, LLC, Hunter Gray. Give him a call, 270-566-0632. They do mowing and landscaping, tree work and cleanup. They have free estimates, and they are fully insured. So give Hunter Gray a call at 270-566-0632. And with that, Brett, we're going to go ahead and give Zach a call up here and get the interview started. We're excited about it.
Sounds good. Let's give him a call.
All right, folks, we're back here on the podcast, and we're now happy to be joined by the Hunting Public's Zach Ferenbaugh. Zach, how you doing this evening?
Doing pretty well. How about you guys?
We're doing good. We're excited to talk to you. I know Brett and I have watched your all's content for a long time, and we learn a lot from you guys, and we kind of want our listeners to learn kind of what we've learned from you all as well.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for following along with our stuff.
Yeah, no problem. So, Zach, for a lot of our listeners are in the South Central Kentucky area and are in the state of Kentucky. Most of them probably do know you, but for those that don't, why don't you tell them just a brief summary of who you are and what the Hunting Public is?
All right. So, I am from originally Ohio, Western Ohio, kind of a flat farmland area. When I was in college, I moved to Southeast Ohio and hunted the hills down there. And I guess I've been hunting public land since about the age of 12, I believe, when I first started hunting public land. And then I moved to Iowa when I was 22 and been there, I guess, a resident of there since. But then I guess a few years after moving to Iowa, we started the Hunting Public, which is myself and other friends that hunt public lands, travel around. Our main thing is traveling around and hunt public land, I guess, and just try different stuff. We try to learn different areas. One of the things that we felt, a lot of the hunting industry or media was doing was just limiting themselves to kind of the best areas. And while we do live in Iowa, we don't hunt there all season. We like to go out, out of state and do different stuff. And I like the challenge of new areas, I guess. But
yeah. The other thing. Iowa's a pretty good place to start.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say Iowa's a pretty good place to start if you're going to be hunting places.
Yeah. Yeah. Iowa's pretty fun. It's fun to hunt there, but like I said, I really, for us, the biggest thing now is just we're into the travel so much that, Iowa's kind of secondary. Like, for example, this turkey season, I only was in Iowa for 3 days of turkey season. A couple of those days were raining, and, I only filled one of my tags. Like, could have stayed there and hunted stuff I know, but, it's just
You like to get out. You like to get out and go on different terrains and different states and places. I understand that. Adventure every hunt, different adventure.
Oh yeah.
And I know I've seen this on one of your all's episodes. You all talk about how you want to go to these different places and kind of be a model for how maybe other public land hunters that don't have the opportunities for private land to want to go out there and kind of see how you do it on different types of land and different areas of the country, so they can, maybe have a little bit of information on what to do once they get there.
Yeah, I mean that was going to be one final thing, I guess, with the Hunting Public. Our main goal is to help other people get into the sport of hunting. It's a thing where it's a dying thing to a certain degree. There's lots of different opportunities for things for people to do these days, and we feel like hunting is a really great opportunity to get outside, move around, and, we just want people to get into the sport, stay in the sport. So, we feel by, showing our efforts on public land and, showing some success on public land, we're hoping to show people that, hey, the opportunity's still there to get out there, even if you don't have property or have permission, whatever it may be. But, kind of just helping get people into it and give them confidence to get out there and try it.
Yep, that's a very good answer. Now we're going to that gives us a good chance to transition into some of our deer hunting questions, which I know you guys got the deer tour coming up, which you can talk about a little bit later here in a couple months. But what are you doing right now to get ready for deer season as the hunting public? I mean, Brett and I and our family, we hunt a little bit of private land, or a little bit of public land. We've recently, in the last couple of years, acquired some private land we've been concentrating on a little bit. But for us as private land hunters at this time, we're putting in food plots, checking trail cameras, running those, mineral sites, things like that. But what should a public land hunter especially be doing right now to get ready for season?
I guess the biggest thing that I'll put out there is if you're around deer, as far as any hunter, I think you should just be thinking about what they're doing and, just trying to understand. You're always scouting to a certain degree, just keeping tabs on deer. Not specific deer or anything, just deer in general, seeing what they're feeding on, seeing what, habits they're making, checking different things that can fluctuate, like water levels, stuff like that, especially this time of the year. So, for example, right now, I'll go out and do some scouting, but my scouting isn't necessarily like trying to find the best bedding area at this point. I like to just scout just to be out in the woods and get a gauge on what's changed. So let's say I've been to an area, whether that be Ohio or Iowa, for example, an area that I've been to a lot. Maybe I haven't been there for a couple seasons. I think, hey, I'm in the area, I'm going to go check it out. I'm not going in there to see what's changed as far as, like, where I think the deer are going to be bedding. I'm going in to check, what different, habitat types have gotten grown up, what trees have fallen down, so what has changed about the understory in some certain areas. For me, this time of the year is just getting out, exploring, and keeping fresh tabs on everything. I think that differs from guy to guy in our area. Some people put a little bit more weight, not in our area, our group, sorry. Some people put a little bit more weight on summer scouting. I like to summer scout. I just don't I'm not looking for deer sign. I'm not looking for fresh deer sign. I'm looking for maybe some old deer sign or just trying to find areas that are hard to get to. Because I just think so much can change. And I have some sort of an expectation in my head, for what I'm looking for in season anyway. Does that make sense?
Definitely. A lot of things can change from summer into, whenever you actually get out there and when you get to hunt. I know behaviors change. I know they go back to a lot of things that, from the summer, but you just never know once that, time comes.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I think is another interesting, kind of one step backwards, just kind of generalizing the off season. I also am not a huge fan of like putting too much weight on what I find in February and March either. I know that's like kind of against the rule book or whatever,
That's what everybody tells you to do anyway.
Right. Here's my reason. It's pretty simple. It's just that you're looking at all of the deer signs from the whole past fall. So you're looking at signs from September 1st, roughly when the deer shed their velvet, all the way till, end of January when they shed their antlers. Like, that is a lot of time that you're looking at in March or February that, you're trying to guess when that sign was laid down. I'm not saying it's bad to go out and scout. You should always go scout. That's the best time to go into a new area because you can see it, there. You can see it at its, I guess, most open time. But if you were going in there, let's say in February and find a great rub line, and at the end of the rub line, you feel like you find a bedding area that's about confusing. Well, I used to fall into this trap all the time where all summer, man, I sit there and I think, oh, hell yeah, I can't wait to get in here and, get on this rub line. It's going to be, October 1st or whatever. Or maybe I've made up a day in my mind anyway. I've made up some date that I think it's going to be on. And I go in there and I set up and I sit there the whole hunt, and then I don't have any, I don't see anything. And then I look back on that and I thought, man, what a waste of time. If I would have just went into it with a more open mind, check sign, and just continue to keep moving and not just going with the mentality of I'm going to set up. Like, I had not wasted a whole hunt. So they kind of bring it back to now and just generalize all of scouting season, which is any off-season time. You're going in and you're looking at the things that have changed. You're kind of learning new areas just in general. But then when you go in to hunt, you're taking note of some of the sign that you found, and you're just popping in a strategic way, checking if it's hot or not. And then if it's not hot, you just keep moving to the next bedding area, within the day, within the hunt. So that way you're not sitting a whole hunt, wasting a bunch of time set up on sign that you thought looks good, 8 months ago. Who cares? That doesn't matter to me anymore. I used to put too much weight on that, wasted a bunch of time, and really we're not everybody has all the time in the world. Like we're trying to help people become super efficient. I feel one thing that that's just what everybody's telling you to do is not really that efficient. Don't be afraid to go in and hunt and scout. Be active.
Be aggressive. I think
not
that
even just be aggressive. Not even just be aggressive. Just be actively, be actively scouting. Like, for example, let's say there's 2 or 3 bedding areas in a specific piece. Like, I'm going to go into that piece with my bow. Maybe a tree stand, maybe a ghillie suit, maybe whatever. Maybe no plans at all to set up ever. I'm going to go to that first bedding area, and let's say I get to that first bedding area, and none of the rubs are opened up. There's no fresh scrape, whatever. So I move to the next one. Same deal. Maybe there's a little bit better sign, but not much. But then I get back to that third bedding area, and I'm like, okay, this is where all the deer are. So instead, I've just, stopped, preventing myself from setting up on spot one full hunt, and then the next day, the whole hunt on area 2 just to get to 3. Instead, I got there on day 1.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
So I guess if you're a weekend warrior type guy, you're hopefully just making yourself more efficient by hunting in that style, I guess that's my take on it.
Well, that makes perfect sense, Zach, and a lot of our listeners are your weekend warrior type hunters. I mean, we schedule our vacations here to deer hunt, so we have a little bit more flexibility than the average Joe, I guess. But still, you bring up some good tactics there to maximize your success while you're in the woods. But so I guess we live here in South Central Kentucky, as we've mentioned earlier, and there's tons of public land around here. We've got Lake Cumberland, Green River Lake, and Dale Hollow, just all right here together.
Within a couple hours of each other.
And there's plenty of public access. We don't hunt it a whole lot, just because we do have some access to public grounds. But I know that's where it started for my father. He used to public ground that used to be the only place where deer were back when he started hunting. So he hunted there, but it's a lot of steep hills and thick big timber, and you have to access it mostly by boat, climbing up steep banks. So I guess for our listeners that might want to get into public land hunting around here, how would you go about accessing this type of country?
That's a tough question for you, I know, since you've never seen it, but I figure you probably obviously would I know you guys are big on onyx, so that's probably is that where you would start?
Yeah. So I mean, the first thing that I guess if I'm in any state, the first thing that I'm going to do to find public land is just use some sort of app or look through DNR websites, stuff like that. I mean, there's tons of different resources out there nowadays through the different apps, and just simply talking to people that are working for the Division of Natural Resources, you can find these areas. But once I start finding areas or ways to find them, for example, like I use OnX, but if I'm looking at OnX, I'm gonna look for, first thing I'm looking for is how far away is the nearest big city or town. For example, in Kentucky, if I'm looking at public land that's 15 minutes out of Louisville, know that there's probably going to be a lot of hunters going to that from that city. So, not to say that you should totally disregard that. I'm just saying for like a weekend hunt or a vacation type hunt where you're going to have a little bit more time to assess into it. And I'm looking at maybe put a little bit more effort into driving. Looking at that type of stuff. So, if I can tell that hey, it's going to take me 3.5 hours to drive here from my town, and then it's another 2 hours to the next town. On the other side of it, then I'm going to know, hey, it's probably not getting a ton of traffic from residents, So a lot of times that's the starting point. I'm looking for a low population area where there's just not a lot of people, driving around along a lot of roads, not a lot of houses, at least for the given state. And then from there, just looking at those ways that, I can get creative with access, whether that be by a boat or maybe biking in, just hiking in general a little bit further than the next guy a lot of times can get you to where you need to be. But I personally like to look for places that are really big, really vast. A lot of the areas that you've explained, I know from looking at them briefly on maps, they're big areas. That's the type of stuff that I like to hunt. I like to hunt big areas that I can, if I know that worst case scenario, I can always try to outleg somebody. Simply walk further than them. So that's what I'm drawn to as far as that goes. And then as far as hilly, heavily timbered areas, not a lot of field or no field, I think that intimidates a lot of people. I think that makes them feel like there's no place to start because of a number of different reasons. But I guess one thing I typically hear people say is they just go wherever they want. There's no reason. They just will bed anywhere. They'll feed anywhere. There's no crop field to draw from point A to B. And while that may seem true, it's not true. Deer still need specific things, and there's still specific things that are going to draw them, from point A to a point B. It's just not going to be as defined or as, maybe it won't be. It could be, but a lot of times it's not going to be, as many deer going from one fixed bedding area to a crop field, and you're not going to see those major trails, that you would in maybe some more open farm country. But in the big timber, the factors are still there that the deer need. They want security. They want areas that they can escape, be away from other hunters. They want a diverse, vegetation that they can feed on, and then they need water. So once those three things, you look for those, or a lot of times I'm looking for those three things, and one easy way to do it, and it kind of sounds silly, but, the more different habitat breaks you can see on the map, the more different, colors even, where you've got a little bit younger forest, it's maybe like a light green, and then a taller forest, it's like a dark green, and then you've got that mixed with a clear cut, whatever it may be. The more habitat diversity you get, the more likely deer are going to be there because it's going to have all those factors that they need.
Yeah.
Same things with turkeys as well. Turkeys need water and habitat diversity. So do deer, especially big bucks. You're going to find big bucks in areas where multiple things come together.
Yeah, we've heard you kind of preach on that at the Hunting Public. All the guys are talking about diversity and the habitat and just how important that can be to the animals out there.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a thing that, I feel like you can hear a million times. You're about it, but until you really start to pay attention to every single tree type, every single brushy, vegetation type, grassy vegetation type, whatever it may be, like, in your area, like, until you start really paying attention to how much diversity there actually is, I think it can continue to, like, it can continue to be a tough thing to figure out, but, once you really start to pay attention to it, you realize almost every time, there's a huge amount of diversity in an area that a mature buck is living.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly kind of the answer we were looking for. But, Zach, we're going to take just a quick break here, and we'll be back with you just in a couple of minutes. We're going to ask you a couple more questions, and we'll let you get out of here.
Sounds good.
All right, folks, we're back here with Zach Ferenbaugh of the Hunting Public. Zach, we appreciate you for coming on. Like we said before, we want to go ahead and ask you another question. Obviously, I know your guys' specialty is, public land hunting, but you all do have a little bit of private land, here and there with some of your friends and Aaron going back to his family farm. This is something, I know you guys talk about not being afraid to really go in there when you're talking about a piece of public, and I know, you guys are primary public land, but for somebody that, we got a lot of listeners that hunt private land only, and, being super aggressive with public land, is it any different? Would you go at it any differently on private land, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, very, very slightly. Very, very slightly different. Not very differently. I would still end up being super aggressive, so it would be more specific to, exact conditions that I am hoping, looking for, I guess, in that area. So, I mean, people listening, I feel like for the most part, I've said this a million times, and I don't really hear too many people saying that they've changed, the way they're doing things, and it's frustrating because it's still the same animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what we're doing on public land is the most aggressive way to hunt. I mean, I don't know what else. Like, I try to bump bucks sometimes.
I've heard you talk about that.
We're hunting these areas that, like, tons of other people can hunt too. So, when we're sitting here saying the bucks will not leave completely, like, you really should trust us when we say that, because they really won't. And it's not just Iowa. It's not just, Kentucky. It's not just Ohio. It's not just Nebraska, whatever. Like, the more and more we talk to people, we go to these different areas and count them, like, deer are not some mythical creature as soon as they step across the state line. Like, they're still the same animal. And I guess the difference, ultimately, I'll try to put it together without straying off too much, but, here would be the main difference. If I had, let's just say I had a 40. And the first thing I'll say, for me personally, I will never just have a 40 to hunt. I'll never make that my situation. I understand if it is somebody's situation, but the way I like to hunt, and I find it enjoyable, I just can never limit myself to one spot. But let's say, with that being said, if I had 140, I would try to have 50 40s if I could, or I'd have,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have a couple fives. I'd hunt on 2 acres. I'd hunt on 7 acres, but maybe an 80. But, I would try to get as many places as I could, so that way I could hunt the way I wanted to, because I find it to be the most effective way.
Yeah.
Let's say I have a 40, and there's one bedding area on it. The way that I would go about hunting that specific spot is the first year that I hunted, I would run trail cams on it. And I would try to be, not very intrusive as far as hunting it, or not very intrusive as far as checking a trail camera. I would just want that trail camera out there on that 40 to gain info. To gain info, basically telling me when the bedding area is most active for the next season. So, let's say we go through season 1, I hunt my other spots mostly, but have a trail camera or 2 running on that 40 the whole season. get done, and I look at the dates, and I see, there's a window on there that October 16th through October 20th, there's just a ton of buck movement on there in daylight. Like, they're hitting the scrape outside of the bedding area, which is telling me that, hey, that's the time that bedding area is the most, I guess, active. So then I pull my trail cameras out of there. That's all the info that I really want. I don't necessarily care about buck size. I'm not looking for a specific buck or anything. I just know that that's the time frame when that bedding area is hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hunt other spots at different times, other areas that I have. But then as soon as that October 16th time frame comes around, the temperature drop hits within that little window that I can tell that they're, using that bedding area the most. That's when I'm going to dive in, and I'm going to do everything I can to crawl as tight to that bedding area or in the bedding area as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's still the same move. It's just a more specific day where on public land, we'll just do it whenever. It'll be 85 degrees and we'll crawl into a bedding area with a pond.
Yeah.
Because we have nothing to lose. Like, we just go to the very next spot. But, on a place that's more fragile like that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to hunt it aggressively. And if it doesn't work, then you may get one more sit out of it, within the next day or two if you're careful. But, if not, then I'm going to give it a break, hunt my other spots, and then come back in during the rut, hunt that bedding area again during the rut, and I guess I feel that there's almost no point to bow hunting if you're going to sit back until the rut happens.
Yeah.
If you want to sit back, not saying it can't work and people aren't successful doing some things, but it's like, if you sit back and you're being careful, you're still leaving your scent out there, and the deer is still recognizing that. So why not just go right for it? Because it's not like if you bump them out of the bedding area, they're going to go bed out in the open field, because that's not, because that's not where your scent was. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, it makes sense.
If you leave scent in the bedding area, they're not just going to go bed where there's no bedding habitat because you put your scent in there. Yeah, they may move to the next bedding area over, but a lot of times the next bedding area over isn't very far away.
Right.
And if it is on the neighbors, they're not going to leave for forever. I mean, they're just not. It's
right.
Just,
and that's something that I've heard you guys talk about a lot is if you bump a deer, well, so what? That deer won. Its bed served its purpose. They set up there to avoid predators. So that's what's happened. If you bump the deer, they get out scot-free. They're going to come back because their bed was effective. Now, I've heard you all talk about that, and that was kind of an eye-opener for me.
One more example that I'll say, and this is just we got tons and tons of examples, but this is just the first one that came to mind. So, I'll use the Ohio example because it'll be closer to you guys and your listeners. So, like, I was in Ohio with my friend Ben this past season. We had these videos of this. So we went into it. We found a hot bedding area, tons of deer in it, tons of bucks cruising through it. It was just an open CRP field. And one morning, my friend Ben and I are crawling in, and long story short, he messed up and didn't get drawn on a buck. That came right to us. Came to like 10 yards, saw us, just plain as day, saw us, blew, took off running, bailed out of there. Didn't see him for the rest of the day. Literally, guys, the very next day, we pushed up into that bedding area about 300 yards further, at first light. So we spooked in the morning before 300 yards to the east, and we moved 300 yards to the west the next morning, just deeper into the bedding area, and guess who we saw?
Same
buck.
Yep.
So, it's not necessarily that, you may not use that same exact bed if you bump him. You may not use that same bed the next day. He might too, but he might not. But if he isn't, he's somewhere there. He's not more than, he didn't just move 3 miles down on your neighbors and she's never coming back. And And I say that with hopefully giving people hope, to hunt in a different way, because it really is, it's irritating to me at this point in my hunting career to listen to, the majority of hunting media telling you to hunt in a way that basically is not hunting, is avoiding your hunting area and never going in, because then, if that's the case, then, you're just never going to be aggressive, you're never going to be at the right game, and truly, most hunting media is not realistic to the majority of us, like, what's going on in hunting media and they're telling you to do in the magazines and the other videos out there, like, that's not relatable to me. I don't have the opportunity to hunt the type of areas that, the people writing these things are telling you. So, I guess I get frustrated because I just don't feel like it's the right thing at all. And I think that it's just because, there's people that are hunting in Iowa that are telling you, sit back on your food plot, and it's like, to the majority of us, it's like, well, what do you mean, what food plot? That's not relatable.
Until a couple of years ago, that was us. I mean, we're still learning. And kind of to your point about going in, like Brett and I have struggled. Normally, I mean, obviously our favorite time to hunt of the year is the rut, because there's just nothing like it. But we found over the last couple of years on the private piece that we hunt, the deer are there early, and we have an opportunity to probably go in and make a move on those deer early because they're active on, scrapes and, they're just around. But we tend to want to wait just because we want to hunt the rut. It's like we just have to hunt the rut, and we will pass deer and just kind of sit back, and I don't know what's wrong with us. We just want to hunt the rut so bad, and we'll let them get by us, and then the neighbor kills them, the deer move out, they change their pattern, things like that. And I think that's one of the things that Brett and I have learned from, watching the deer tour the last couple of years is, if we have a deer, if we know, the deer's there and the sign's there, this year I think we're just going to go in and try and kill them, because like we were just talking about, if we do bump the deer, he's not going far.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially if you guys like hunting the rut anyway, if you bump them out of a bedding area early season, like, that's still their core general area, it's like a 3-mile area that the buck's still going to be traveling during the rut. So, I think, I just think it's a huge misconception of being safe. It's like, there's very specific times where deer are in bedding areas that, in October, a mature buck may be in 4 different bedding areas, one about, or maybe 3 for a week apiece, just based off of his food source. He's going to bump around. He's going to move around a little bit. He's not just going to be in the same spot. So if you catch one on a pattern and you're quick to it, you can get him. Mm-hmm. And I just think that, a lot of people just are making the same mistake. They're saying, "Oh, I'll wait till he's for sure going to be active." Well, when the rut happens, man, they're all over the place. Yeah. Like, that's really
crazy.
Really the worst thing that you could do, in my opinion, especially if you're going after a specific buck or a specific group of buck. I know a lot of people like to target specific deer, have a hit list or whatever, which I don't do. But if you're doing that, and you really want to shoot these specific bucks, then the worst thing you could do is wait till rut, because by the time rut happens, they may be. Then they really are at risk of getting shot by your neighbor on their own terms, not your terms. So you might as well get aggressive on them when you got them on patterns, especially when you know where they're bedding early season.
Yeah.
Or late season too. Same deal. If they're bedding, if you know where they're bedding late season, it's the same play. There's 2 times of the year where it's very habitual bedding, and that's where you can catch them on patterns based off bedding, not early and late. During the rut, obviously. And then most people are talking about food sources early and late, but ultimately that food source can change day to day. The bedding areas are less likely to change day to day.
Yeah. Well, we got one more question that I know that you have some thoughts on that I've heard you talk about in the past, and then we'll just have a couple of quick hitters and let you go. But with a lot of the land that we hunt, both public and private around here, there's lots of hilly terrain, and I know you hunted in Ohio where it's had that that same kind of terrain. Talking about wind, it switches, it swirls, it pulls up our haulers on our private land. It's like we try to play the wind to the best of our ability, but we get in the stand and it's doing exactly the opposite of what we wanted it to. And I know that is probably, if not the most important thing that you all do, it's one of the most important things that you concentrate on.
Yeah, this is a tough question, and I haven't found a way to exactly answer it and explain my whole thought process because it's very situational. But one thing that I think really started helping me is just thinking about sun and how much sun makes air rise. So, for example, let's just say we've got a valley, and the valley runs north and south, and your hillside that's on the east side of the valley that gets hit with sun let me backtrack that. It's run north and south, and we'll say that the hillside on the west, as the sun rises in the morning, it's that east or that west hillside. So you got a visual there?
Yeah, we're with you.
Okay. So you got a valley north and south, and your hillside on the west side of the valley is getting hit with that east rising sun. If it's a calm morning and that east or that west hillside is getting hit with sun, the air on that hillside is going to start to rise. So if you have a west wind, for example, that sun hitting that hillside will make the air rise off the hill, and then the west wind will take it right over the top of the valley. So on the other side of things, if you got no wind, you're just going to rise right off that hillside. So on the other side of the valley, though, all that air in the morning that's not getting hit by sun is just going to sink down at the bottom because that cool side sinks. It's not rising; it's sinking. So that same hillside, that same west hillside that is rising in the morning, where the air is rising off the hill in the morning, that night when the sun starts to set on the backside of the hill, the air is going to drop back down towards the valley. So you've got to be thinking about how that thermal is going to be rising and falling, based off of where that sunshine is. And once you start thinking about that, at least, it's going to put you in the game a little bit more. And it just takes a lot of experience and practice of just feeling the air current.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times you're actually getting a lot more consistent wind than it seems if you can get in the right places, just because the thermals are so strong. Now, it may not last all day. I think a lot of guys want to get into a tree stand before daylight in the rut and sit there all day. The wind never changes. The wind be in their face all day. Well, that's just not going to happen 9 times out of 10, A lot of times we'll go in and we'll sit for like 2 or 3 hours and we'll get up and we'll do something different because the wind's going to switch. The thermals are going to switch. It's not the wind switching, it's the thermals switching, in hilly country, that is. So, be thinking about where that sunshine is hitting because, you watch that sunny hillside in the morning and, steam is just rising. But then you look at the other side where it's in the shade, there's just frost.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that stuff on the frosty side, that stuff's all dropping. The stuff on the hot side is all just rising. So you can play that wind a little bit based off that thermal, for sure. But a lot of times, too, it's not, there's rarely a stand unless you're just doing flat ground or on a ridge top that you're going to get a consistent all-day wind.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just hunt those areas, you're just doing what everybody else does, and then you're not going to see, a lot of big bucks.
Right.
Because they know that's where all the hunters want to sit because, does that help at all?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Brett and I, of course, we've learned from watching you guys and listening to podcasts and watching, everything else. 5 years ago, I didn't know what a thermal was. You know what I mean? And it goes a long way once you start seeing how they move, how it moves, and Brett's really honestly the one that turned me on to that, and it's something we we go out and we pay attention to every single time.
Yeah, we're trying to do better at it. We're by no means experts, but
that's why you're on the phone, Zach. You're the expert.
We're trying to learn and get better at it every time we go out. But I'll hit you with a few little quick hitters here, Zach, if you don't care.
Yeah.
I know you've hunted a lot of places, and maybe you don't like to hunt the same place more than once very often, but do you have a favorite place or state or farm to hunt?
This can go back to when you were a kid, if you're anything like that, just anything at all.
Yeah, I guess there's a little part of me that I do like Ohio just because I like how diverse Ohio is. It's a pretty cool place. I mean, there's a lot of states that are pretty diverse, and to be honest, I wouldn't necessarily say that's my favorite, but for the sake of saying this, I'd say it's definitely up there. You know, I really, really like turkey hunting in Southern Ohio. Like, that still might be my favorite terrain to hunt turkeys in. So, maybe not a perfect answer, but it's
that's fine. So, you guys, the hunting public, obviously you hunt on the public ground a lot. So what makes hunting on public land and public land in general so important to you guys? Is there something in particular, or you just what is behind that?
Ultimately, I mean, I think, like, on a personal standpoint, you know, like, what I think we just all like to venture a lot and seeing something new, and we really like to travel.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, hunting these public areas just gives us access to that. But, like, for our goals as far as, you know, Americans in general, public land is important to us because, you know, we feel like it's something that, you know, we should have to allow people to get out and recreate and do things outdoors, whether that be camping, you know, rock climbing, whatever it may be. If we don't have public land, we lose a lot of opportunity to do a lot of that stuff because it's just not easy to gain access on places. And, you know, we feel like if public land starts going away, we're just going to, you know, sadly going to lose a lot of people getting outside doing stuff. So
I agree. I agree 100%. And personally, I appreciate what you all are doing and trying to get the knowledge out there and you know, the conservation and everything. As an outdoorsman, you know, I certainly do appreciate it and want to extend my thanks for you all doing that. But I guess, Zach, now we'll wrap this up. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we do?
No, I guess, well, my biggest thing, if you're a whitetail hunter, man, you're, like, sitting in a position where, like, dang, every year I'm close, but I'm not quite getting around the buck I want to. I'm you know, I feel like I'm in a rut.
I just raised my hand.
Out of that. You just raised your hand. Yeah. Break out of your rut. Do something that seems completely foreign to you, and I would say chances are you're going to end up having a lot more fun. You're going to be a lot less, a lot more stress-free, and you're probably going to end up having more success because I think too many times as whitetail hunters we're listening to too much BS, and we should just go with our gut and try to be around where deer are, and that's ultimately something. It's kind of simple.
Yeah.
So, like,
I think
break out of that rut, man. Break out of that rut. No fun to be in a rut. Really not fun. I mean, I was in it at one point too, and I remember talking about just, like, doing a lot more fishing, you know. And it's like, I'm glad I never gave up and did eventually break out of the rut that I was in, you know.
Yeah.
Well, Zach, thanks. We do want to, you know, give you guys. Everybody needs to go. If you're listening or watching and you haven't checked out the Hunting Public, you need to do so now. Most of you probably have because they're one of the best educational, entertaining, you know, hunting, fishing, outdoors, you know, things out there right now. Zach, what's your all's social media handles?
The hunting. You can find us under the Hunting Public on every platform we're on. So YouTube, Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If there's something else that I can't remember, it's under the Hunting Public as well.
Just everything Hunting
Keep
Public.
it simple, huh?
Well,
yeah.
All right, Zach, we appreciate it so much, and thanks for all you guys do. We'll be tuning in for the deer tour upcoming here this year. So once again, thanks to Zach Ferenbaugh of the Hunting Public, everybody.
Well, hey, thanks to you guys as well. I enjoyed it.
Appreciate it, Zach.
All right, folks, we're back here, and we're going to wrap up this edition of the Aaron Outdoors podcast. We've talked to Zach Ferenbaugh of the Hunting Public. Brett, he had a lot of great insight and a lot of great conversation. We could have talked for hours with him.
Yeah, definitely. It's very good to listen to people like that. It's got experience traveling, hunting all over the place. He's seen a lot of different scenarios, and they kill a lot of big deer, Blake. So, they're very good at what they do, and if you haven't, check them out. They're great, but we certainly appreciate them taking some time with us this afternoon.
Definitely. We do want to remind you guys before we head out here today, the sponsor of today's episode of the Aaron Outdoors podcast, Gray's Lawn and Landscape LLC, Hunter Gray, 270-566-0632, mowing and landscaping, tree work and cleanup. They have free estimates, and they are fully insured, so you definitely want to give Hunter Gray a call at 270-566-0632. And with that, Brett, we're out of here for today. We want to thank once again Zach Ferenbaugh of the Hunting Public for joining us for today's chat, and we will catch you all next time on the Aaron Outdoors podcast.
See ya.